Hello BookTube. For the second tag, I'm going to be doing this doubled tag Thursday. I'm going to be doing the in or out tag, the Steve Donoghue edition. A few months ago, Rick McDonnell did the in or out tag, and Steve Donoghue did the tag a day or two later, and he added a few questions as well. And I've wanted to do this tag for a while, but some of Steve's terms he uses in his question I found a bit difficult to understand, so I had to rewatch the video and kind of figure out. So hopefully this time around I will have a better handle on Steve's questions. Rick's were relatively easier to do, but I don't think I ever did like Rick's on its own, because I wanted to do both of these tags paired, although as separate videos. So, Steve's in or out questions. 1. Ebooks. I'm out on ebooks. I understand they are environmentally friendlier. I understand there is a storage advantage and probably an ease of use advantage, but in my experience, ebooks just do not compare to physical books. And the greatest period of when I would use ebooks was during the pandemic. My local library closed for a significant amount of time, and I was also a judge for the BookTube prize, and not having access to my library, and also some of the books for the BookTube prize not being easily available, or I didn't want to spend money on. I ended up going with ebooks mainly through my library, but I've also picked some up on Kindle, and I just don't like it. I just do not like reading ebooks. I don't find it really all that convenient, all that ergonomic. Particularly the e-library that my library uses leaves much to be desired, and I much prefer physical copies. And as you can see over the past few months, my book buying has increased rather dramatically compared to earlier, largely because I do not have access to my library, even though it is currently open and stuff, but the actual going to the library is a bit more difficult, because I have to ask somebody to take me, and they're not really all that willing to travel unless it's to a doctor or a curbside. So anyway, and I might talk about this on Friday if I feel like I need to rant. Number 2, silos. Now, this is one of the prompts that gave me some pause, because I'm like, silos? Is he talking about grain silos? What Steve is talking about here is, do you limit your reading to a few genres? Say, for example, do you only read romances, or do you only read literary fiction? I am out on silos. I try to read as widely in as many genres as I can, although I don't necessarily always achieve that. But I do try my hardest to read as widely as possible, even if I'm not necessarily enjoying the books that I'm reading at the time, because I probably need to read more widely so that I don't end up overdosing on any one genre. Problem number 3, evangelism. Do I sing the praises of the books I love? Yes, I do try to evangelize about some of them. I have harped on Big Wonderful Thing by Stephen Harrigan, Post Wall, Post Square by Christina Spohr. So, yeah, I'm in on evangelism. 4, palate cleanser. So, I in on palate cleansers. Now, for me, it's not like one big book that requires a palate cleanser. For me, it's a time thing. I can, like, let me backtrack it a little. In August, at the end of August, I participated in the History Reading Challenge, or the History Challenge. And over the course of 2 weeks, I read a number of history books. The World Turned Upside Down by Yang Jisheng, Republics of the New World by Hilda Sabato, The Woman Who Would Be King by Kara Cooney, Knossos and the Prophets of Modernism by Kathy Geer, and it was mostly for a 2-week thing, and then I got to the last book on my TBR, Empires of the Week by J.C. Sharman, and I'm like, I don't want to read this. So I think I went on to either City of Lost Fortunes by Brian Camp, or Priest of Bones by Peter McLean. But then and just this week, so I did kind of need to switch off from one genre to another. Sorry about that little weird bit there. Number 5, Promiscuity. Do I read multiple books at once? No, I usually try to read one book at a time. Now that might have to change when I participate in a few readathons or read-alongs that are happening in October. I'm planning on doing the Dune read-along and the Way We Live Now read-along, so I might have to figure out how I'm going to read them, since I like to read one book at a time. Although I guess I could read Dune the last week of September and then do The Way We Live Now in the first week of October. And that could work. Unless I really want to read some history at that point, which we shall see. Number 6, Bingeing. I'm out on Bingeing. I don't think I can read a huge amount of one author's work or one series by that author in a given space of time. I will get sick of that author or that story pretty quickly. I've been thinking of next year reading the whole of The Legend of the Condor Hero series by John. And I'm sorry. I'm getting a bit tired. I probably need to take a nap. But I don't think I am going to read it all in 1 month. I think if I do reread Legend of the Condor Heroes, I think I'll break it up by month rather than all at once. Completionism, number 7. I think I'm out on, although there are some authors I do like to collect all of their work, but I'm nowhere near any way of completion except for Alan Hollinghurst. I do have all of his work so far, although I haven't gotten around to actually reading all of it. Maybe if I can ever get over the Swimming Pool Library, we'll see. McCarthyism. Now in this prompt, the question is, do I investigate the authors I read to make sure that their opinions conform to my own, or well enough to my own opinions? I'm out on this. I really cannot be bothered to really interrogate, to investigate the authors I read. I'm just going to read them, and if I don't like their work, I'm not going to read them. Number 9, security blankets. Again, I'm out on. I don't necessarily have to take a book with me or something, whatever this prompt was. Number 10, going back to McCarthyism, this is stalking. Do you stalk authors you read or whatever on social media? I don't. I do somewhat follow some authors, but that's only to see if their books are coming out, like when exactly their books are releasing, with progress on their current projects, which I'm so. Number 11, tourism. I'm out. I don't necessarily go on vacation. I don't really do. Yes, I'm out. 12, day tripping. Again, out on. 13, collecting. I think I'm a bit of a collector. Not necessarily in like accumulation, rather than like specifics. 14, organizing. Yes, I do organize my library, and this is one of my favorite topics I like to talk about. So I have my library, my book room, broken up into sections where different genres are placed. So in my desk, there are 2 shelves where I have my writing books and my art books. My art books used to be in the living room, but the piece of furniture, the entertainment center where the art books were, we've gotten rid of. So I moved them in here, although I would like to move them somewhere else because it's taking up a little bit too much space compared to the writing books. Over here, I have a headboard bookcase where I have sundry fiction, mostly non-science fiction, fantasy, genre fiction. The upper shelf are omnibuses, and the lower shelf is just assorted books that can fit in there, because otherwise my head's going to go into the bookcase if the books aren't in there. Excuse me. Above the headboard bookcase is where I have my manga, which is steadily growing. On the other side of this wall here is another wall shelf where I have my paltry poetry collection and the non-history non-fiction. Both pretty much equal halves, which are quickly running out of space. Over here is the literary fiction, but you can also say the modern and contemporary fiction, along with 2 canonical works. I recently got in The Mill on the Floss and The Way We Look Now, and they're at the very end. Then over here, and snaking around for most of the room, are my science fiction and fantasy books, which take up the bulk of my collection still. And then starting here and going down, and then moving over into this shelf here, is where I have my history books. So the science fiction, fantasy, and the modern and contemporary fiction are organized alphabetically. The history is organized largely by size, because this shelf here and the shelf that's under it the shelves aren't equal sized. So some shelves are smaller than others, so I have to be careful where I put the books, unless I want to risk putting some of the books on their sides, which I don't particularly like to do. And then some of the other, this headboard bookcase, the science fiction, fantasy, the poetry, the writing books and art books, they're not organized in any way because they're quite small. And I do have the manga organized alphabetically as well by a mangaka. Where are we here? Okay. 15, hate reading. I bail too quickly to hate read, so I'm out on that. 16, annotating. I'm out on. I do not like writing in my books at all. And I'm not particularly fond of seeing annotations in my book. Sometimes it's okay, and sometimes it's Paradise Lost, and somebody decided to write the F word, to drop an F-bomb in a neon highlighter. Yeah. 17, revisiting. I do like to revisit authors I haven't particularly gotten on with in the past, or particular works. and also books that I have loved, to see if my opinions have changed, how they've changed, that sort of thing. So I'm in on this. 18. Overdosing. That is always a danger with me, of overdosing on a particular genre or a particular writer, although it's mostly genre, that I do, or really big books, I do kind of get a little bit tired of it. 19. Subvocalizing. I'm in on. I do subvocalize in my reading. I have tried to not subvocalize for a few times, and I do not get the same pleasure out of not subvocalizing that I do with subvocalizing. So, and also I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I actually retain the information from not subvocalizing. But I mean, I might give it another go and see if I can learn to not subvocalize and to enjoy it, or to draw pleasure from it. And we shall see. I had hoped to, or I was trying to train myself by reading National Geographic, but it didn't really quite work. But I'll try it again and see. But to be honest, I'm really under no obligation. I mean, I don't really need to read fast. I mean, yeah, I have quite a lot of books in my collection that I would like to get to that I haven't read yet. But yeah, I mean, if I blitz through them, I pretty much have to have a lot more books, which would be actually nice too. So, but yeah, so I subvocalize. And finally, number 20, BookTubing. Do I don't quite remember what the, oh yeah, I think it was, are your book reading or your reading or book purchases influenced by BookTube? Anyway, yes. Certainly a lot of books that make it to my wish lists I see on BookTube. Steve Donoghue, for example, The History Shelf, others that make me want to pick them up. Not necessarily as a recommendation to read, because I found that a lot of the booktubers I enjoy watching, I don't necessarily enjoy their taste. Like, I don't share their taste in books all the time. So, yeah. Anyway, that was the In or Out tag, the Donoghue edition. So, yeah. I actually had quite fun. So yeah, I had quite a bit of fun with this tag, although probably maybe a bit painful to read, watch, because I am a bit tired. I think I might lay down for a little bit before I go to my afternoon reading. Anyway, so tomorrow will be weekly reads. Might involve a rant or two. Could also involve talking about the 4 Children of the Apocalypse, because we will be having them over early in the afternoon, which might be fun or might be annoying, depending. And yeah, so no BookTube until tomorrow. Thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.